Well, good morning, everybody. It's the start of another week, and I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are as well. Also, I hope you had a great weekend and you were in church Sunday worshiping the Lord. If not, would you go to our website, fbcrockhill.org, and watch one of the live streams of our services from this past Sunday and worship the Lord that way. I know it's not the same as being in person and on campus, but yet it is a way to be connected with us and to worship. We're in Genesis 41 today, so while you're opening your Bible there, I want to ask you to be praying because this Tuesday and Wednesday, tomorrow and Wednesday, we will have church planters on our campus. These are people who are planting new churches, starting new churches in South Carolina. And over a 2-year period, they go through various trainings, and they'll be here for 2 days, and I'll be training them on character and longevity and just other leadership issues. So would you be praying for me and for them as we spend these 2 days together, and then for the churches that they will start, or some of them have already actually started new churches. Pray for these church planters. I appreciate that very much. After reading Genesis 41, the first word I wrote in my journal, just one word with an exclamation point was time. Time, T-I-M-E. It keeps moving forward no matter what we do. And it can be filled with ups and downs. Some of it can be very hard. And Joseph's experience for me illustrates that reality of time and what it can be like. Look at the very first verse, chapter 41, verse 1. Now it happened at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream. Goes on to tell the dreams, and no one could interpret them for him. And eventually the cupbearer who had been in prison with Joseph, and Joseph had accurately interpreted his dream in the previous chapter, and after the Pharaoh had released him from prison, restored him to his role as the chief cupbearer to the Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt. Joseph had asked that cupbearer to remember him to the Pharaoh, to get him out of prison, okay? But the cupbearer forgot about Joseph. 2 years passed. 2 years. Then God intervened and gave the Pharaoh a dream, and suddenly the cupbearer remembered Joseph. 2 years. When he's released from prison, we learn in verse 46 of this chapter that Joseph was 30 years old. Previously, in chapter 37 of Genesis, we learned that Joseph was 17 years old when his brothers sold him into slavery, and he was taken to Egypt. So for 13 years, between the age of 17 and 30, Joseph was a slave. Spent most of those years actually in prison, in jail. And even when he was out of prison serving Potiphar, he was still a slave. 13 hard, long years. Then at age 30, he interprets the Pharaoh's dream. He's released from prison and elevated to a place of prominence, power, position, and comfort. 13 years, hard years. Over in Genesis chapter 50, the last chapter of Genesis, we learn that Joseph was 110 years old when he died, meaning he spent 80 years in comfort, 80 years in leadership in Egypt, 80 years with power and prestige, from age 30 to 110, 80 years. But here's the point. Those 80 years of influence and significance and comfort were made possible because of the way Joseph dealt with the 13 hard years that preceded the 80. And it's quite possible, if not likely, that the 80 years of comfort would never have occurred if he had not handled the 13 hard years the way he did. I believe there's a lesson in that for us. 13 years as a slave, 13 years with no family, 13 years of being betrayed by one person and then another, 13 years of disappointment, of sorrow, of waiting, of hoping that someday 13 hard years. The lesson is how we handle the hard years may just determine what opportunities God does or does not give us on the other side of those hard years. God is always at work in our lives and beyond. He's always preparing us for what is to come. And he's always testing us to determine, can he count on us for what he may want to do down the road? So, how we deal with the hard times may determine what comes next, or may determine the opportunities that never come our way because we didn't handle the hard times well. That's an important lesson in life. I believe that's an important lesson Joseph teaches us. Now, does that mean if we mess up one time during the hard times, it can never be good later? No, it's not. No, God is a gracious God. But I do believe God, through the hard times, can be preparing us and testing us. And there can be good times later, but maybe if we'd handled the hard times better, there would have been greater opportunities. I just have the biblical conviction, life experience conviction, that there is truth in this principle. So when you're going through the hard times, remember that. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at Genesis 42. God bless you, everybody.